Athletes who were caught cheating, Part 2. In 1994, on the day before the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, title holder Nancy Kerrigan was filmed finishing a practice skate, but just seconds later she was screaming in pain on the ground after a man with a police baton attacked her. The attack severely bruised her knee, which made her unable to compete. Her longtime rival Tonya Harding went on to take first place and was selected alongside her for that year's Winter Olympic skating team. However, police soon discovered that the attack on Kerrigan had been ordered by a bounty hunter. In a shocking twist of events, Tonya Harding's ex-husband Jeff Gillooly and her once bodyguard Sean Eckhart were labeled as the culprits. They'd hired the bounty hunter to break Kerrigan's leg, removing Harding's competition in the upcoming events. Although she claimed she had no part in the conspiracy, Harding later admitted that she knew her ex-husband had been involved, but she'd failed to report it. But karma had the last laugh. At the games, a malfunction with her skates saw Tonya placed down in 8th, while Kerrigan managed a silver in 2nd.
Here are some things that 99% of humans can't do. Are you part of the 1%? The ability to raise eyebrows is an evolutionary trait that all of us can do. While pretty much everybody can raise their eyebrows, only 1% of the world can raise one eyebrow at once. Did you know that 99% of the world can't lick their elbow? So you probably can't do this, and I bet you're probably doing it right now. However, for some people, this task is actually really easy, which is due to being born with really flexible bodies or practicing a lot of gymnastics. Only 2% of people can wiggle their ears. Unlike other face muscles, ear muscles are operated by a completely different part of your brain. If you try to use your face muscles to move your ears, it's never gonna work. So you're gonna have to raise your eyebrows and smile widely to lift your ears. And if you're lucky, you might be one of the few people that can move them.
These people have died. Part 5. In 2000, Burger King managers Lisa Goetz and Lori Thomas staged a fake robbery of the restaurant where Lori took the money and Lisa acted as the victim, bound with duct tape and trapped in the walk-in cooler. Unfortunately, police didn't arrive until the next morning, where they found Lisa, who died of hypothermia. According to investigators, Lisa could have easily freed herself from her bindings and escaped the unlocked refrigerator, as she had no signs of forced restraint and the duct tape was loose. In 1998, during a heated marital dispute, a 25-year-old man picked up his 20-year-old wife and threw her off their 8th floor apartment balcony. Somehow the woman became entangled in the power lines below, and in what may have been an effort to save her or maybe finish her off, the man leapt from the balcony aiming for the wires. He missed the power lines completely and plunged to his death, and the woman managed to swing over to a nearby balcony and was saved. This man was frozen in ice for 3 days, and you won't believe what happened to him. His name is David Blaine, and he went inside a block of ice for 3 days with no food and only one tube supplying him with air and water. At the 61-hour mark, he was beginning to lose consciousness, but he couldn't go to sleep because if he leaned on the ice, he would have gotten severe frostbite. Unfortunately, this led him to have extreme hallucinations. Near the end of the stunt, he called his girlfriend over, but she was immediately pulled away. This made him think that he was dead and that she couldn't see him. After 63 hours, they decided to cut him out, but they said he was so delusional he tried to grab the chainsaw. He finally made it out, but he was so physically and emotionally tired that he couldn't walk or talk. David was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and after 1 month of therapy, he finally made a full recovery.
If you're watching horror movies and feel like something's watching you, this could be why. A family from Ecuador enjoyed watching horror movies together in their living room. But one night, during their late horror night session, they began to feel a strange presence with them in the living room. Scared, thinking they might have attracted an evil entity into their home, they placed a camera in their living room, and this is what they captured.
Ahí yo fue que ya comencé a sentirme mal.
¿Por qué?
Porque mira, ve, eso yo sí lo vi claramente, así, de reojo.
Oye, ¿por qué se me
Mira, sí, sí viste, eso sí, eso sí.
One of the family members is startled as a dark figure can be seen moving behind him. After this, objects began to fly across the room.
La puerta de alguien como la tenía trancada. No
Mira, sí, uy, ¿sí ves?
Sí.
Ahí pasa.
And they just get out of there. The family will later call in a priest to bless the house, but the hauntings persist.
This is the stuff of nightmares that's like straight out of the early 2000s, and it has a lot to do with the dark web. Sometime around 2004, when people were just starting to explore what would later be known as the dark web, they would talk about a woman that would show up on your screen. Except it wasn't a woman, it was a distorted mask of a woman's face. And what this person would do is that they would recite your full name and your address, and then say, "I'm coming for you." And then the whole screen would go dark.
This is what they mean when they say only 5% of the ocean has been explored. What kind of fish is this?
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 16. Kangaroos are absolutely terrifying, and if you mess with one, it will likely lure you into the water and attempt to drown you. There's an abandoned Disney park that you aren't allowed to go to, and it was shut down in 1999 because it was infested with free-roaming alligators. The animals were being abused, and an 11-year-old boy died from a flesh-eating bacteria found in the park's waters. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, the lion's costume was made out of a real skinned lion. This is the John Lawson house. No one knows who lives there, but every single day, there are several female mannequins sitting on the front porch wearing a variety of clothing. Their positions and outfits change daily, and many believe this is meant to convey some sort of message. And in 1871, a train crash took place just 200 feet away from the home, killing 22 people. And these mannequins are always pointing toward the crash.
Yeah, the hyena's a girl. So many may know, female hyenas have a fake meat hose that looks almost identical to the real thing. And for those that don't, actually, that's the lead. They have a pseudo-phallus that they give birth from, and yes, it's as traumatizing as you think, and yes, the very process of birth can end up doing the exact opposite for everyone involved. But low-key, having a built-in flesh strap might explain why hyenas are exactly the way they are. So for most animals, life pretty much comes down to the 3 F's: food, fights, and... So a lot of times when male animals run a fade, it's for the goal of female validation. But hyenas having a female 5th leg means they have a natural crotch block. It's basically anti-mating hardware that means the no pants dance can only happen if she allows it. So unlike things like lions or bears, there's really no reason for male hyenas to want smoke with each other when getting it in is already RNG. Pun intended. And it's believed having coitus completely out of their control is why male hyenas are way less aggressive and even have less testosterone than the females. Meanwhile, the females are more on go than a green light. And why hyena sisters are way more likely to put each other on a t-shirt. And with them being pack animals with a whole social ladder, the Walking Comedy Club had to become more aggressive just to give their cubs a chance at life. Matter of fact, that's probably why they have more testosterone. So yeah, moral of this video. Lion King did hyenas every type of dirty, but they got it right when they had Shenzi giving orders. And now you know why.
This is why you should be scared of that one person you're talking to online that you're about to meet in real life. Blanca Arellano, a 51-year-old Mexican woman, was looking for love. She met a Peruvian man named Juan Villafuerte on an online gaming app. And on the last day of October, she traveled 3,000 miles to Lima, Peru to meet him. She thought that he could be the one. On November 7th, while in the beach city of Huacho, where Villafuerte lived, Blanca spoke to her niece on the phone and told her that the relationship was going well and that she was in love. Then she went silent. Her niece suspected something was wrong after not being able to get into contact with her. She called for help on Twitter and reached out to Juan Villafuerte, who said that Blanca got bored of him and left to find a plane ticket back to Mexico, as he could not provide the life she wanted. But the truth was much, much darker. On November 10th, Peruvian authorities found a severed finger on the beach of Huacho. Then in the following days, they found a faceless head, and then an arm, and then a torso with no organs inside of it. They eventually identified Blanca Arellano via her family by the ring on her finger. Juan Villafuerte was arrested on charges of human organs trafficking. Authorities found traces of blood all over his apartment, and he reportedly posted TikTok videos of human organs days after Blanca's disappearance. Creepy last words people said right before dying. A nursing assistant said that she was in a long-term patient's room changing the sheets. The patient would periodically look behind her. She asked the patient what was wrong, and the patient looked in her eyes and asked, "He doesn't scare you?" The nurse was confused, and she asked her who she was referring to, and the patient said, The big man in the top hat. He's standing right behind you. She said that she doesn't think that she has ever finished changing a bed sheet and repositioning a patient as fast as she did that night. She refused to go into that room by herself for the rest of her shift. Linda Johnson, a former nurse, said that she had a gentleman in his late 90s who was dying. He started screaming blood-curdling screams, so they raced to his room. He was screaming that the room was on fire and that there was a man with large horns peering out of the flames. He kept pointing to one wall, saying that it was on fire. The nurses turned on the lights and tried to calm and console him, but to no avail. Instead of being consoled, Linda said that he told her that she was on fire and that he could see her being consumed by flames. Linda said that it was the creepiest thing that has ever happened to her. The doctor was notified, but nothing relieved the patient's terrifying hallucinations. He died soon after. Cynthia said that several years ago, her 20-year-old daughter had brain surgery. She got an infection of the spinal fluid. She was there in grave condition for a month. Cynthia never left her daughter's side. One night, the worst night at this point, she asked who the man in black was that was standing by the bathroom, and why Cynthia's deceased brother, the girl's uncle, was standing next to her at the side of the bed. Cynthia immediately got the chills. She told her daughter, "They're not here." Then she told her brother and the man in the black, whom she couldn't see, "You both have to go now. She's not ready to go, and I'm not ready to let her go." After that night, her daughter started to get better and better each day. Today, her daughter is doing well.
September 25th, 1981, something very strange took place up in the Smoky Mountains. This is a picture of Pauline Melton, and it would end up being one of the last known photos of her. Because while Pauline was up there, she was with two hiking companions. They described that she all of a sudden, without explanation, just started to rapidly speed up. They even described that they called out to her and they were asking, "Pauline, where are you going? Pauline." She never answered, she never looked back until she crossed over a hill. Since that exact moment, Pauline was never seen again. And to this day, they still have no idea where she went and why she did it.
Donald Trump was shot this afternoon at a political rally in Pennsylvania. As you can see right here, this was moments after the shots were fired. Now, we don't have all of the information right now, but obviously he is still alive. And the footage is absolutely disturbing. In the clip, you can hear multiple gunshots ring out. The audience starts screaming. Trump drops to the ground. He is covered quickly by the Secret Service agents. In the broadcast footage, he grasps his ears, so he may have been grazed by a bullet up there. Like I said, we don't have all the information. This is a developing story, but this isn't the first time that someone has tried to assassinate a president or former president. In 1912, an assassin attempted to end the life of Teddy Roosevelt as he was on the campaign trail. This man was former salon keeper John Schrank, and he would later claim that William McKinley's ghost had visited him in a dream and told him to avenge him for his assassination. Teddy Roosevelt, after being shot, continued with his speech, even as he profusely bled through the front of his shirt. And while he didn't end up getting elected that year, doctors at the time said that it was safer for him to keep the bullet inside his body than attempt to remove it. So for the rest of his life, he carried on with a bullet lodged in his chest. Then in 1981, someone attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan. This photo was actually taken just moments before the shots were fired. 3 people were injured in this attack, but nobody died. And obviously, as you guys probably already know, Ronald Reagan survived. He was in critical condition when he was rushed to the hospital, but nobody ended up passing away from this assassination attempt. The guy who did it was named John Hinckley Jr., and weirdly enough, he had been obsessed with actress Jodie Foster after watching the film Taxi Driver, and he claimed that he had carried out the assassination attempt in an attempt to impress her. And interestingly enough, he just signed a record deal last year and will be releasing a folk album soon.
We need to talk about what's going on with Aubreigh Wyatt. Aubreigh was a 13-year-old girl who went to Ocean Springs Middle School in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. In September of 2023, Aubreigh took her own life after being bullied by a group of 4 girls. Even after Aubreigh's death, those bullies continued to harass her and bully her. Aubreigh's mom, Heather, ran to social media as an outlet to talk about Aubreigh and just to try to cope with everything that went on. On her account, she would talk about bullying and ultimately what it could lead up to. Although Heather did not name or threaten those 4 girls, their names and personal information ended up being shared by others. Heather was the subject of 2 separate lawsuits brought by the parents of those girls. The Jackson County judge ordered Heather to take down all of her social media accounts so she could no longer talk about Aubreigh's case, and they did this so that they could protect the minors in this case. Shortly after that, Heather started a GoFundMe page to raise money to help with legal costs to be allowed to keep fighting online on Aubreigh's behalf. I truly hope that Aubreigh gets some kind of justice in the end.
The first person to live forever is already alive, at least according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who explains it with irrefutable logic. It starts with someone that was born in like the past year or so. Our test subject, call him Johnny Boy. The reason Johnny or any of us age is because our cells are constantly dividing, making fresh copies of our DNA in each new cell. Our DNA is packed into chromosomes, and since DNA duplication isn't perfect, the tips of these chromosomes are slightly trimmed on every replication. Sorta like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. The quality slightly degrades each time. To protect against this, our chromosomes have something called telomeres on their tips, which essentially contain junk DNA data that we can afford to lose. But even these telomeres are finite. They get shorter and shorter on every duplication until at some point they're fully gone. Then the cell stops dividing, gradually loses its function and withers away. The more this happens in our cells, the more we age, and our bodies experience age-related characteristics. Scientists like David Sinclair are currently getting really close to reversing this process in human cells. He's developed what he refers to a chemical cocktail that can reprogram the way our cells are read to sort of fill in the blanks from these imperfections in our DNA replication. The science behind it is quite extensive, and he ran tests on lab mice that were incredibly successful. Having mice born at the same time with one looking visibly older than the other says that human trials are planned to start within the decade, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing success in that. So where does this live forever come from? Obviously, the first version of this cocktail won't be perfect and may extend human life to, let's say, 150 years. Now remember our test subject Johnny Boy? In 20 years, he'll be 20, at which time we're almost guaranteed to be undergoing human trials at the very least, if not already publicly available. This life potion is given to Johnny so that he can live until 150. The claim states that by the time Johnny is 40, we're almost guaranteed to make enough advancement to double the anti-aging cocktail so that now he can live till 300. 20 years later, when he's 60, the potion will be improved so that he can live till 500 years old. By the time he's 80, he can live till 1,000. These numbers are all arbitrary, but the general principle still holds up. Even if we start seeing diminishing returns in the improvements of this concoction, Johnny has already hacked his way into living forever. He can already live till 1,000 at this point, so even if it takes 100 more years to improving the medicine to living till say 2,000 years old, he'll live until then and take it, constantly outliving the improvement curve of anti-aging until they've cracked the code to the million-year potion, at which point Johnny Boy is essentially immortal, which means one of two things absolutely must happen in our future. One, we colonize other planets, or two, we stop having babies. If people are living forever and no longer dying, our population will continue to grow and just grow and grow. At which point we either need more space to put people, like other planets, or we gotta stop making people. So unless we want to sterilize the entire human race, living forever probably isn't a good idea until we figure this multi-planetary business out.
Things that show off the power of time. Part 7. Disney World has had about 58 million visitors per year since it opened in 1971. And during those visits, guests would often have to wait in lines that were organized by rope walkways. And if you look closely at the rope clips, you can see that they've started to wear down. Some have even created a new groove. And no, I'm not talking about Cusco. Next, watching waves at the shoreline might seem like a calming activity, but not if you're a resident of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Over time, the waves wore the shoreline and even took a huge chunk out of it. Now, this would usually take several years for the effects to be seen. But in the case of Green Bay, this all happened within the span of an hour. And lastly, we're told that tattoos are permanent, but this may not be the case, because this guy got a tattoo of a flower on the palm of his hand, and in just 2.5 months, the tattoo mostly vanished. This is mainly because our palms experience a lot of friction from how often we rub our hands. So if you want a tattoo, you might want to avoid your palm.
Bro, I gotta ask, what is the most wholesome animal on earth? Brother, if you wanted a manatee video, you could've just asked. Did you know when alligators and manatees cross paths underwater, the alligators seem to let them pass? A prehistoric sledgehammer and they give manatees the right of way. That's how you know you got motion in the ocean. There's never been a record of a manatee attacking a human, and it might be because it's literally physically impossible. One is because their teeth are way in their mouths, and their molars designed for grinding grass, not biting You know, if you ever get bit by a manatee, that means you were in his throat, and if you were, that means this law was for you. Some things don't need exploring Columbus. Also, some scientists think that because adult manatees have no predators and because they don't have to fight each other over who eats what grass, there's a lot of talk that the sea squishy is mentally incapable of feeling aggression. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I will say 3 things. 1, they don't just eat grass, they'll go pescatarian if the opportunity presents itself. 2, as fast as you think manatees are, they're faster. It might not be with malicious intent, but 1,200 pounds of anything moving like that is definitely cause to pause. And 3, last year a popular manatee named Hugh, past tense after essentially explicit interaction with a bigger male named Buffett, tore him open like a reverse butt birth. The catch: Buffett was his brother. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but did you know manatees are also closely related to my favorite animal? They even got the same nail tech. So yeah, I'm a little biased, so I'm gonna let it slide. Especially since I'm pretty sure it wasn't aggression, but just a dangerous lack of awareness. But yeah, God bless this water blimp, and R.I.P. Hugh.
Don't freak out, but we are right now entering the beginning of the end of the universe. 95% of all the stars that will ever form have already formed. And it gets even crazier than that. There is a sphere around us called the Hubble sphere. Beyond this point, everything is moving away from us faster than the speed of light, due to the expansion of space itself. And how many of the galaxies do you think are outside of this sphere? 94% of all the galaxies we can see are beyond this boundary today. Meaning, no matter how hard we try, if there are aliens living in these galaxies, we will never be able to meet them. 60,000 stars pass beyond this horizon every single second. That's nearly 2 million solar systems we can no longer visit since the start of this video. This will continue until we are all alone. The universe as we know it, with all the beautiful galaxies and nebulae, will slowly fade away into darkness, and the astronomers of the future will point their telescopes everywhere, finding the same thing: darkness and silence for the rest of eternity.
Here are horrible things done by very influential people. Everyone knows Steve Jobs for founding Apple, but what most people don't know is the dark side of his personal life. He had an on and off relationship with a woman named Kristen Brennan, and this led to a messy pregnancy and a years-long paternity battle. Steve Jobs refused to help Brennan and their child financially, and she had to go on welfare. Now, eventually, he did help his daughter, but only because Brennan came forward about his behavior in an interview with Time magazine in 1982. Before becoming a popular kids book author, Theodore Seuss Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, served in the animation department of the United States Army during World War II. He wrote training and propaganda films and designed posters to get people signed up to join the army. But a lot of his work at the time made the Japanese look really horrible, and this carried on into his earlier books. And Mother Teresa helped provide healthcare to the sick and the poor, but her actions behind the scenes were questionable, to say the least. It's been reported that her care involved these people allegedly going through a forced conversion to Catholicism, which involved children being baptized without their parents' consent. She also allegedly hid the actions of priests who were behaving inappropriately around children, and used charity funds for her own medical care. Yeah, this is not what Jesus would do.
This teacher was caught doing it with an 8th grade student, and apparently it was almost daily. The kid was 13 years old, and now she will serve 10 years in prison. This happened in Texas. The teacher behind me, her name is Alexandria Vera. She's 25 years old, and this 13-year-old got her pregnant. She stated the relationship happened in the Instagram DMs, and his family apparently approved of this relationship. The judge and the school district said that they want their teachers to teach students, not put their hands all over their students. She was originally going to get 30 years in prison, but the judge said, I don't think she's that bad, and gave her 10 years. Apparently this relationship blossomed in 2015 around summertime. The boy kept advancing, she kept denying, but eventually she gave in apparently. Prosecutors said, based on evidence, they did it daily for 9 months straight. And apparently during the entire ordeal, to get away with this, she told her neighbors that the boy was her brother. And now it gets even weirder. She even moved his father in with her so she could pretend she was dating the father when in reality she was the kid. This was kind of a mask. She was also paying for the family's groceries and phone bill. This kid literally had a sugar mama. Now, Alexandria Vera has a 6-year-old daughter that even called the 13-year-old kid her dad. What an interesting case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're from Houston, Texas, did you hear about this case around you guys? As always, these videos are for informational purposes only. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I definitely feel like she should have served life for this. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the court system was pretty lenient on her.
I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I mean, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know. It's a chance at this point.
The video you just saw was made by murderer Peter Keller, who in 2012 murdered his wife and daughter before taking his own life. Now, in the lead up to murdering his family, Peter actually made a series of disturbing vlogs. He took a handy cam out with him into the woods and showed him preparing for something. He actually was creating an underground bunker stocked with all sorts of supplies like candy and beans. And during these videos, he talks to the camera very candidly, and it's some really disturbing stuff. The videos offer a glimpse into the mind of a killer who's on edge. He didn't know at the time whether or not he could actually follow through with murdering his wife and daughter, but unfortunately, he did. On April 22nd, 2012, after constructing the bunker in the woods unbeknownst to his family, Peter shot both his wife Lynette and his daughter Kayleen in the face with a silenced weapon before he set his house on fire. He then fled to the underground bunker and was able to evade capture by the police for a whopping 6 days. But once authorities figured out where Peter was, they surrounded the bunker with a SWAT team, and that's when he fired the fatal shot into his own head, taking his own life. In his video recordings, Peter talks about how it'll be exciting to live out in the bunker, and he discusses his fantasy of robbing banks and pharmacies and living on the run. But his run didn't last that long, and he left behind so many questions and a trail of blood and sadness. If you want to hear more stories like this, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available now on all streaming platforms.